Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Brought to the Table, a podcast where we have a guest come onto the show to bring their unique perspectives and ideas to this table. I am your host, Luke Jones, and today I have a very, very special guest with me. Kind of been there since the beginning of this year, since I've been creating content, honestly supporting the stuff that I do. So I want to give a huge special shout out to Sam Smith, aka Lord of the Board, aka the internet's biggest Root fan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, that's very true. I'm so glad that you called me Sam Smith too, because I keep getting all these people asking me what my actual name is, because I've done so well at just saying Lord of the Board in most of my things. If you haven't watched my videos, you would never know that my real name is Sam Smith. So I'm happy. I'm happy.
No, I like to, a lot of the people that we have on the show like to go by different nicknames and stuff. And like, I have kind of lost the name Joker Jonesy when doing this podcasting stuff. And I've really kind of gone to my real name. So I want people to know who I am, like as an actual human being. And I think that's super important. So that's why I want to call you out by your real names. Give you some realism.
The Sam Smith.
Exactly. Now for those of you who do not know, if you've been living under a rock since the beginning of this year and you've been following anything that I do, Sam has a YouTube channel that does a lot of strategy types of videos. Mainly, I would say Root is like one of the big games or anything that Leader Games does. But I would also claim to be the first villainous content creator out there where you're making them strategy guides for villainous. So I have to give you a huge shout out for the fact that even slightly inspiring me to do any of the content I'm doing right now. So I want to give you a huge shout on that. And if you haven't already, which I know we have a lot of viewers that cross over, make sure you just go subscribe to his YouTube channel and follow him on all the social medias. But we'll do more of the plugs stuff later. But I just basically give you your entire background for you. Is there anything I missed?
So much. No, that's pretty much my life right there.
There you go. All right, I'll write your biography one day when you need me to. But Sam, we have a very interesting topic, and I'm going to let you introduce it because I think today's podcast episode, we've been doing a lot of really cool episodes recently, on all sorts of different topics. And I think this one's going to really hit home for a lot of you tabletop gamers out there. So, Sam, what is the topic of discussion today on Brought to the Table?
So there's kind of it's kind of like a broad topic, but it's mostly about, I would say, basically communicating to publishers, and I would say it's mostly on the communication side of that. So whether that's getting like deals, so as a creative, like do we charge, do we not charge, how much do we charge, like all those weird questions, all that kind of stuff. Like how has that experience gone for both of us? I think that's really important to talk about because not a lot of people do. And publishers can be really scary. So there's also that.
Yes, I can concur. Publishers are very scary. So Sam, where do you want to start this conversation? Because I think, we talked about this before we started recording, that this show can go really in a multitude of different ways once we kind of get going. So where would you like to start, friend?
I would probably like to start, well, I'll start with a statement. And say that I've never been paid to review a game yet. Which is really interesting. Yeah. Because, well, here's the deal. A part of me says, like, I shouldn't, because it helps to grow the channel when I'm receiving games, But then another part of me sees that other people are paid to review the same game with the same or less number of reach as me. And that confuses me. That's kind of like a weird experience where I'm like, I don't know what I need to do.
Right. Now, like, so obviously you said like the money portion is like important to the channel and stuff. Like, are we talking about just like game coverage, game reviews? Like, are we talking about everything under that, tabletop gaming sun?
Yeah, just everything under it.
I gotcha. So my first question to you is why, I mean, obviously you said growing the channel is important with that extra income, but like, why is that important to get paid for your work?
Sure. I would say, so originally I was thinking, well, look, I'm receiving a game, the game's value, is so and so. I mean, that's actually worth it for me to do it because I'm getting the game for free, pretty much. But then you've got to think to the publisher, they're spending way less than the worth of that game to get that game. That's usually why they're so okay with, sending free games in general. But then also, here's where it gets really crazy, is the fact that the amount of hours that I know you and I know me and I know dozens of content creators actually put into the videos that we put out. I mean, when we're passionate about something, we put our heart and soul into the videos that we're making.
Yes.
That right there takes a lot of time, and especially when you need to be looking, like in my current case, I'm actually looking for a job right now, and so spending time focusing on Lord of the Board, making videos, it's harder to justify if I'm not getting some sort of compensation as well on top of that, if that makes sense.
No, I think you speak very loudly to. I think, one of the things I definitely want to bring up with this conversation is kind of like the younger, and not necessarily age wise, although I know you and I are some of the younger content creators right now in the space. Like a lot of the folks that are doing this starting out and they're trying to get a name for themselves. And I think the key word you bring up there is passion, because, something I've talked about, with the, I've obviously rebranded the entirety of my YouTube channel and kind of my name a little bit.
Yeah.
And part of that has to do with the fact that I am passionate about just hanging out with my friends, playing games, and like having these real conversations like you and I are having with each other. And it all kind of comes together about the things that we love. Tech, me, it's education. Both of us love it, tabletop games. And I think that passion is something that we don't get enough of in this industry. And I think it is what makes it difficult, is that when you have folks that are passionate, like you're very passionate about Root, I'm very passionate about Villainous. We're also passionate about other games, and we definitely show that in the content that we create. But
Yeah.
I think what happens is that a lot of these publishers want to reach out to those folks that have a large spread of what they do. So, I don't want to throw any shade on any publishers during this. And when I'm actually being critical during the show, which I plan on being, I'm not going to call specific people out. But like Dice Tower, I've watched the Dice Tower for over a decade at this point. I've been watching them since 2010. So like, and I know for a lot of content creators, especially that they've started out, have not been watching even that stuff for that long. And, the thing with the Dice Tower is that they cover everything. That's kind of their shtick. So they're going to get every single game under the sun, just to at least make a video about it, whether it's good or bad. But guess what? That is coverage that game is going to get that someone else is not going to cover. When you're going to someone like myself or Sam here, where we're very passionate about, these very particular things, like we aren't going to cover all those games that those publishers want to cover. Whatever, big publisher, they create all these different games. Sam and I aren't going to be passionate about every single one of those games, and that's important, because I think we need to show how much we love particular things, but we can't fake it. If someone were to send me a game and I'm not going to enjoy it, I'm not going to sit there and make content about it. But then that publisher is going to look at me and say, well, Luke doesn't want to cover our game, so we're not going to talk with him anymore about doing any deals or free games or what have you. That's even going beyond the compensation aspect of it.
Sure.
And I think that's when it gets tricky, because, I tell people like this year doing all this content has been like a huge, like inspiring thing for myself. And it's because I'm passionate about it. And that's why I haven't gotten burnt out by any of it yet, because I just absolutely adore doing this content. But if someone were to tell me to start reviewing a bunch of these, smaller games that I'm not super excited about, I don't want to cover that stuff, and I'm going to get burnt out. At least that's my take on that whole spiel.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, I know it seems so weird. Like, I am not a huge channel for one. I am a little bit under 4,000 subscribers. I'm not a huge channel. But I have actually already declined some games. And there's a reason, and it's the exact kind of thing that you were saying, is like, if I initially have no interest in that game, I just feel wrong. I mean, I personally would feel wrong, basically, just reviewing the game for channel gain, um, because like I know that that's not a game that my viewers would even enjoy, at least my current viewership. A lot of the people that watch my channel are older, more mature, so kids games just would not fly very well.
No.
So I'm kind of staying away from those. I don't want to lose, the relationship that I've built with the viewers that I have right now. But kind of that same subject kind of brings in a whole other topic, which I think you were running into, where you had such a particular viewer, which was, Villainous Lover, uh,
Right, exactly.
that you wanted to broaden your channel's horizon. And I am running into that same issue. I am 60-40 split right now. My viewers, 60% are root obsessives, and then the other 40% are the villainous obsessives. And basically, I'm just trying to see what other games might stick in their mind slowly by doing, some random videos on strategies on some games that I love and enjoy.
Yeah,
But it's tough
I
with
think it's
our
really
kind
good.
of viewers.
Yeah, no, and like I know we definitely have some crossover fan base stuff because I
Mhm.
know a lot of people found out about my channel thanks to you when you first shouted us out when we had you on the Let's Get Wicked podcast way back at the beginning. And I think, like I tell people, Villainous is still my favorite game of all time. I'm not burnt out by it. We still literally do weekly streams of competitive league nights, of Villainous. So it's not like it's going away, but like, during the pandemic, I have a neighbor and a friend that come over for game nights, maybe once, sometimes twice a week that, we've been doing our social distancing. So we've been safe and stuff. But like, this is the first time in my life where I've actually had like a weekly game night where we've been actually playing a bunch of different games. And one of the biggest takeaways from that experience that maybe really want to broaden out is the fact that, there are lots of other games that I really, really, really love. Some games that I haven't played in a long time. Like for those of you who follow me on Twitter, and I still do this weekly with my neighbor, I've been going on a Star Wars Destiny kick, and that game is still, holy crap, that game is so good. But the thing is like I'm passionate about Star Wars Destiny, and the problem too with Destiny is the fact that Destiny's done. Like they're
Yeah.
not no longer making the game, so like trying to cover a game that's no longer being covered is kind of difficult. But at the same time, I'm very passionate about Destiny. I want to talk about Destiny. I think it's super important to tell people why Star Wars Destiny succeeded in its gameplay but failed as a production. And like I've told people too that part of what I'm finding about tabletop, which ended up is kind of one of the reasons why I've kind of gone away from video games, is like I enjoy learning about the industry more than I actually enjoy playing the games to some extent. And I think those stories are more important. And that's the stuff I want to talk about. Like, this is the whole reason why I brought to the table exists, is to have folks like yourself. Like, we're not going to sit here and talk about root or villainous strategy for an hour and 30 minutes. We're going to sit here and talk about something really important, which is how to get the communication between the creator and the publishers to be stronger, and what we can do in the hobby to help improve that.
Yeah.
And it's just difficult because, like, is like you said, like 60-40, like I know a lot of my viewers share similar interest in game styles than I do. But not everyone does. Like when I put out a Star Wars Destiny video, not every single person who watches Villainous is going to be watching Star Wars Destiny coverage. So it's tough. And you also have to stick with the times too and what's popular in tabletop gaming.
Oh boy.
And that's definitely difficult.
Oh, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I feel like that is just that right there is probably one of the biggest issues with the current. One of the biggest. There's a ton of issues with the board game industry. We know it.
Yeah.
But that's a really big issue, because if you're a new content creator, you are disadvantaged hugely, because the publishers will send their games to the same people. And those people will get their new games pretty much all the time. Those new games are going to be covered before you get a game. I'm not going to... Here's the thing. Like, I'll give an example. I was super excited once, and I'm not going to give, games or names of companies. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, we're not doing that on the show.
We're not trash talking, but
we are trash talking.
We
are
are
not specifically targeting people.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And I have no anger really towards the publisher at all. So, but here's the thing. I received a game. I was so excited, you know, and I got the date that which I could put up a video on this said game, and I was like, man, I was stoked. So we had a, you know, they have like embargo dates, which if you know, the viewers, if you don't know what that means, is that there's a certain date that the publisher wants all of the content to come out for that review. So you receive the game earlier, and then you release the video on that embargo date where that's basically lifted, and then all those reviews are going to be released to the public by all the different content creators that received that game early. So I received this game. I got my embargo date. I was working on the video. I had everything planned to a T. I was so excited. You know, I got it all ready, and I was like, man, I'm going to be like one of the first people to get a video for this game. Little did I know that like 7 other publishers had a special deal with said publisher where they were actually releasing content the 7 days prior to that game's release. So the embargo date, I was basically, you know, in the group of the 7, or I guess the 8th day that the game had already been covered by 7 other people. When you release a video like that, it's good to have that coverage, but it will get no views because all of the much bigger channels already kind of sucked up all of the publicity that the game was going to gain there. So stuff like that really kind of hurts because it feels like you get a really good opportunity, but then you realize that they gave a much better opportunity to the bigger channels.
Yeah,
If
and
that makes,
especially
if that
like
makes sense.
because like for what in that instance, like the way I feel like the best way to solve that problem is like, hey, to those 7, 8 people that were creating videos for said game, like everyone can release their video on the same day. So that
Yeah.
way, like, because you know, we've all been there. You know, I was very fortunate that when I was covering the Perfectly Wretched expansion for Villainous, that like I was like the only channel at the time who did an unboxing of the game. So like I had a bunch of people come in and see that video, but I was the first one. And like, but the thing is, like, if I was in an embargo and I was the last person on that list, if someone else did that before me, like regardless if you already have cross-compatible fan base stuff, like they're gonna go flock to that, you know, immediately. You know, like that's what they're going to do. They want to get that content now. It's just like if you have been in part of any trading card game when there's spoil season, you know, like you want to see those spoilers. Like I know when I was in Star Wars Destiny, whenever they released the bounty hunter set that had all the bounty hunters, I was just like, oh my gosh, where's Bosk? Where's Dengar? Where's Zuckuss? And people are like, why are you so excited about these stupid alien people? But like that's the thing though, is you want to be able to cover that stuff as soon as you're able to. And as soon as you aren't able to, like you're SOL, like you're not getting that coverage that your channel needs to grow. Okay. And it sucks.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. Man, it is really just disappointing because it, you know, another part of that comes to the fact that, like you were saying earlier, we have a lot of passion for the games that we want to cover. There's probably a reason why I reached out to that publisher and asked to review that game. I mean, I'm obsessed with their games. I have a lot of passion for that. And it really sucks to see like other people release videos and to kind of see that they don't have that same passion. They're just doing the same video, but they swapped out the game, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that hurts so bad.
No, yeah. And I think one of the biggest things I want to definitely bring up is that topic of passion. I know we're already talking about it again, but like, you know, we're getting to a point that the tabletop industry has grown. Like, we no longer need to let certain games know that they exist. Like, we're at the point now, especially because tabletop games are expensive. You know, like, you know, if anyone hasn't read, video games kind of just went up in price with the next gen console release. Yeah. They went from 60 to 70. But no joke, like, board games are more expensive than that. And especially, like, even for something that's a smaller experience compared to a video game, like, if you compare a price difference and stuff like that, like, I mean, heck, like, Oath. You know, like, and this is not throwing shade at Leader. Like, Oath is $90 to $100. You know, that is more than video games.
Yep.
So, like, if you want someone to cover Oath, you need to get people who, like yourself, you know, Sam, love Leader Games content and want to cover that. Know you're probably going to enjoy it, and you want to dive deep into that game and like tell people, like, oh, it's not just here's the mechanics and all that stuff. Like, this is why I love this game.
Sure.
And that's what's going to get people convinced to buy it, because just doing it, like, you know, the general overview of like, oh, here's some of the game mechanics and stuff like that. Like, I just don't think is going to cut it anymore. Like I know specifically this year in particular, I have actually called a bunch of games. I've cut back on stuff I normally would have bought because even if it had like a IP or a theme that I generally enjoy, I'm not going to buy it if it's not something I'm interested in, you know? And I think that's super, super important that passionate creators should be covering the game. Like those are the folks that should be covering the games that need that type of audience. And I just think that's becoming more and more difficult because, you know, you and I are younger in the space. I know you've been doing this longer than I have. And it's harder because there's been people that have been doing this for 10 plus years. And it's just like, how do we say like, hey, I am worth your time. Pick me.
Totally. No, man. Yeah, I actually haven't been doing it that much longer than you, by the way.
I know. It's not been that much longer, but longer enough.
Yeah. No, that's really funny. But you know what really is sad though is when you see people that have been doing it 10, 15 plus years and they have less subscribers than both of us.
Yeah, I know.
Doesn't that make you feel so sad?
No, I mean, I think what it is though is like
it's passion. I'm going to say it's passion because I'm bringing up the passion part again because if you have passion for something, people want to be a part of that. You will naturally gain a following if you have passion for something. And sometimes you'll see a very huge lack of passion, in general with those types of videos. You'll see a difference. And I think that's very obvious.
No, exactly. I mean, like, we obviously, I'm going to bring up Villainous because you and I both have covered Villainous.
We both love Villainous.
Yeah, we both love Villainous, but like you and I cover Villainous in different ways, but like the way that you cover it is this, like, I want to say the same passion, but it's still passionate towards the game. Like I look at it from a really cool, like, 1v1 grain. Actually, we both like it 1v1, honestly, the best. But like you look at it from a very, like, I want to get people into this game. Like, I want to tell people like, hey, here's this really cool game. Here's some ways to get yourself started. And mine is like, all right, if you're in it for the long haul, here's some things you need to think about. We got this league going on too. And all that stuff that I'm running through the community, but like, we're still passionate about the game, but just in two different avenues compared to someone who's like, all right, well, here's Disney Villainous. You play as Disney villains and it's an asymmetric game. It's got cool pieces. Thumbs up. There's definitely a difference there. And the thing is, those folks are the ones that are helping the general audiences at least have the game in their eyeballs.
Yeah.
Which is still good. I don't want to necessarily say that's bad, but it's like, and I know you and I have talked about this in the past, off line, but like when you see people screw up like major rules when you're watching them do the videos and stuff like that, it hurts because you're just like, well, now someone's going to try to play the game in that way and they're not going to get the same experience. And then they're going to go and all that stuff. And it's just a whole big box of worms where you're just like, well, did you actually read the rules? Did you actually like attempt to learn what the game was?
Yeah, no, totally. It also makes me sad when people like call, certain games a certain way when if you really played it, you'd realize that it doesn't feel like that at all, or it's not like that at all. Like you're totally wrong. Like I don't like when people just call Villainous a family game. Because
I agree.
I disagree. Because I would say that once you play it 1v1, you'll realize how little of a family game it really is. In fact, it sucks. Like if you were a kid playing 1v1, you could get annihilated, and that would suck. But it's a really fun game to learn and get better at over time. That's every asymmetric game. So it's like that's why it stays in my collection. I think it's great for both.
And it is a huge plus to that game. And I think, and this is not any shade to Ravensburger, but it's just like, how can Ravensburger communicate that game in a better way? Like, obviously they know that like, yeah, this game does have some depth to it, but like, how can we make it so it's not just viewed as the family game that's a decent Disney licensed IP game? Like how can we take that to a level where that's communicated in a way where like, because I mean, even when I was on Man vs. Meeple, they love Villainous. And they actually even talked about how like a lot of people don't like the quote unquote randomness nature of the game sometimes. And I'm like, no, if you play it as a 2-player game, that is a TCG style card game at its core. Like that's what it's really trying to be. That's what it was when it was initially designed to. And it's like, how do you get that stigma out of people's brains? But when you're having folks like, oh, well, here's this really good family Disney villainous game that's, great for your big box stores. And like, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. But then it's like when people look at the content that you and I make for these games, they're like, oh, they're covering kids' games. Like that's what they're doing. I had to explain to my parents that like when they found out that I was coming like big into this tabletop sphere, they were like, wait, so that family game that you were making gushing about is like a big deal? I'm like, yes, yes, it is.
There are tons of gamers that actually really love this game.
Yeah, like it's a big deal.
That's funny.
And I think there's just a lot of, and I don't, and people listening to the show can like let us know. I would love to know, like, how can the communication between the publisher with the creators and even other creators like together, I think, like, what could we do to help improve all of that? Because I think we're at the point now that the hobby's grown so big that we no longer can just rely on those core, like the general channels that have existed for forever. I think it needs to be more than that, because if you go there, I mean, I'm in, shout out to Man versus People. They've been really nice to me because I'm a part of their Discord, but like they have a whole Discord channel dedicated to when people call their games. And like, I think people just are buying too many games, but I think half the issue is like people are just advertising these games wrong, because tabletop games are super hard to like say like, hey, unless you actually go to someone's house who already owns the game to play it and see if you like it. Like, it's really hard to say like, I know I'm going to like this game. It's difficult. It's absolutely difficult.
No, it really is. It's a very, very tough.
Yeah. Like, and I don't know how, like, and obviously I know TTS is going to be brought up in this conversation at some point, because I know you've actually came around on TTS since we've talked.
Yep. I've changed a lot of my initial. That's true.
Yeah. Why do they hate it, Sam? Tell me why. Tell me why.
Well, okay, so publishers hate it probably for multiple reasons. First reason would be that you're getting access to a game usually for free, because you usually have to just buy TTS, so you can download the actual game assets for free. So a lot of publishers probably think of it like that, where they're like, oh, they're getting the game for free, we're not getting that money. That's inappropriate. Another thought process might be that it's destroying the board game industry, because board games are meant to be played at the table, in person, that type of deal. And so they think that maybe if everybody just realizes that TTS is just so much more convenient, they'll just kind of sweep away from the kind of in-person board game. At least that's the way that I look at it. I think publishers are probably thinking those two ways.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. But guess what, Sam? You know what year it is?
It's 2020, man.
Exactly. And you know what happened in 2020? We can't see people.
Yeah.
I've been a very big component of this since doing the villainous content stuff. TTS is not bad. And publishers, if you're listening to this right now, take notes. TTS is not bad. The only people who make it bad are the people that weren't going to buy your game to begin with. No offense to them. There was actually, I'm relating this to video games. So for those of you who aren't on this spectrum, I apologize, but I want to bring this up. So for those of you who don't know, there was a developer called Telltale Games. They made a bunch of kind of choose your own adventure episodic games that, lasted a long time. Studio shut down recently because they just kind of basically lost money to make stuff. They made the Walking Dead series games, if you folks have seen that. And one of the things they talked about was like a lot of YouTube video game content creators, like they realized they lost a ton of money because folks were watching the content creators play their game. And there was a big talk about this because they were trying to find ways to get the audience more involved in those games to actually purchase the games. But what it boiled down to was those games just weren't interesting to the audience. Like they were more interested in watching someone else play it rather than playing it and buying it for themselves, just like television, because that's what those games are. And the thing is, I'm going to say this to all you publishers. No offense. If someone's going to go play your game on TTS, they weren't going to buy your game to begin with. And no offense, they're going to probably play it once or twice and be done. They're not going to play it again. Get over it. That's how it is. If you're super concerned, there have been tons of publishers, and I have to shout them out. Stonemaier. They release basically almost all of their games as payable TTS mods. that you pay. I bought the Wingspan one. And I also bought the Wingspan digital game. If you are that concerned about that, there are tons of talented mod creators out there for TTS that make wonderful mods for all these different games. Go pay someone to go make a mod, sell it up on TTS. If you have to charge full price for it to justify it, cool. That's fine.
People will still buy it. People will still buy it.
Yeah, people will still buy it. And like, I know Kickstarters. Like, I know a ton of Kickstarter games have released mods of their games out on TTS. So before you were to back the game, you can play it on TTS before you make that final justification. I do realize that there's a ton of weird, if you're especially doing games with IPs, I know things can get frisky, but you need to find a way, especially in 2020, when we can't physically play your games, to figure out how to put them in a digital format. I just got done before us recording this podcast. Team Covenant was covering how Magic the Gathering is really kind of getting into that Magic the Gathering arena thing. And they were talking about how the fact that because of the digital format, you can balance cards a lot easier. You can make it a lot easier, cheaper of entry towards playing the game. You don't have to worry about these physical spaces and production of your games and stuff like that. Folks have to start looking at that. And I know people are going to say that, and like you said it too, Sam, like it's not, the digital format is killing the physical experience person of the games. But let me tell you something. I played Star Wars Destiny. I played Disney Villainous. I played Wingspan. I played other games on Tabletop Simulator. Nothing beats the experience of playing that game in person. I definitely have played more Disney Villainous on TTS than I probably have in real life at this point, but nothing still beats the real experience of playing Disney Villainous. That will trump everything. And if you make your game correctly, that experience will still hold up and people will still buy your games. I know there's actually someone in our community that lives out in Europe, I believe in Ireland, and they bought Marvel Villainous knowing none of their friends were going to play Marvel with them. So that way we can go play Marvel online, because they were like, I enjoy these games enough that I still want to support my publisher that makes my game. So when I go play it on TTS, you know, I've done my duty. And you need to know that too, and just get over it. There's my tirade. There you go, Sam. I'm off my soapbox.
Well, hey, you know what? Yes, I've changed my heart a bit. Because yeah, at the end of the day, if you're a board gamer, you're going to prefer to play these games in person. But I myself had to adapt as a board gamer and realize that if I want to get connections, if I want to make new connections this year, I'm going to have to jump onto this digital board game thing. And so I have jumped onto this digital board game thing. And I feel a lot less bad about it once I've actually joined in and realized that, you know, everybody here would obviously prefer to play in person, but sometimes you got to make do with what you got. And TTS is actually a really great platform that can provide a lot of, you know, playability of the games we love with anybody in the world. And that is just so cool to have.
Yeah. And I know like Leader Games has talked about this. Like they do a lot of their development through TTS. So like, and obviously that stuff is private. So it's not like they're going to put out, oh, here's the next root expansion that we shouldn't have shown off yet on TTS publicly.
I wish they would. I'm just kidding.
But I mean, like, that's the thing too, is like they realize how important that stuff is. And like, they take it seriously. I actually talked with the publisher way earlier in the year about some playtesting stuff. And they specifically said like they were having issues because they did some very minor internal testing on TTS, but a lot of their testing was done in person. So when they had to switch to online testing, like when COVID hit, like that was a big jump for them. And like everyone's got the transition period, don't get me wrong, but the way that you view it, you can't view it in a bad way. You know, you just can't do that. So, totally. And I totally get it too. If you don't want people stealing your games, I get it. But they're not going to. They're not going to steal your games.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. We're on the same page now.
I know. Sorry. When I get on that soapbox about TTS, I always get a little heated.
I'm a
not
convert.
You. It's at publishers.
So speaking of publishers, though, why do you think it's so? What has been your experience? Here we go. I've got a question for you, Luke.
Oh, okay. You're asking me.
I'm asking you.
What's my experience?
Yeah. What has been your experience with, I guess, receiving, contacting, all of that stuff with publishers, like receiving games or contacting publishers for games? What has been your experience with them? Have they been nice? Have they been jerks?
Okay. So I want to start off with a good one. I want to start off
Okay,
because I've had a really good one.
perfect.
So Kira from Man vs. Meeple, shout out to Kira. She works with the Dice Throne folks. She is one of their, I believe, one of their, I think like one of their like advertisement marketing people for that team. And I talked to, and like she knows how much I like doing the TTS stuff and like doing 2-player stuff. And Dice Throne can be played with multiple players, but it's definitely meant to be like a 2-player game. And she asked me, she's like, hey, you know, like maybe at some point we might contact you for whenever we do another big Dice Throne thing, you know, because I think your style of videos would be really helpful for our game. And would you
Sure.
be interested in trying the game out, see if it was your style? And I'm like, sure. And because Kira's an indie, she literally drove to my apartment and gave me all of season 2 of Dice Throne. And my friend group, and myself included, really like Dice Throne. That was a really positive experience. And, you know, if those folks ever reached out to me to go do any content, you know, once they have some more stuff, I would absolutely adore to play more Dice Throne. I think Dice Throne is a really good game. I slept on it when it first came out. And it's definitely like, it's not like one of my absolute favorite games, but like it's definitely like, oh wow, this game is really good. Like I can attest to how good this game is and like what it does. So shout outs to Kira for helping me out with that. She gave me a really good positive experience with that. Now this is when everything goes to hell.
Oh man.
So I will not name names. I've told Sam one of these stories, but technically two, because I just talked about this before we jumped on. So the first story I have was back in around April, May-ish. I had reached out to a publisher to help cover a game that I was interested in doing. And I actually even addressed to them saying like, hey, I don't necessarily need a free copy of this game. I would just like to be able to cover like spoils of cards and stuff like that so we could talk about it. And the publisher basically told me, you don't have enough subscribers, and basically told me I had to diversify my content. And let me tell you, as a new content creator, when someone tells you at the moment when you start in January and you have 600 subscribers in April, and someone tells you don't have enough, how crappy that feels. And let me tell you, publishers, this goes back to the passion thing. If someone's passionate about your game, you don't need to pay for them to make content. Send them the game. And if you don't want to send them a game, send them cards to talk about. It's not that complicated.
Do what you can.
Yeah, like you don't have, I mean, like it's just, don't say that, because you're literally belittling someone when you're saying they don't have enough subscribers, especially in the content creation space. Like when Google is literally telling you like the numbers are like all everything almost, like that sucks. Don't tell someone that. That's really, really mean. It actually really bummed me out for a few weeks. To the point that I almost didn't want to make content anymore. I will say that much. I actually haven't said that publicly to anyone. So don't do that. Number 2, the other experience, this was actually a little bit more recent. I was actually getting some games from a publisher. They did a bunch of things wrong. First thing, they promised me 3 games. I only got 2. Did not explain to me why the third game was not ever given to me for any reason. And if it wasn't given to me for any reason, that's cool. Like you just need to tell me though. It's called communication. Yep. Second, they never sent me tracking information about the package that they sent me, and which ended up causing a bunch of issues. They screwed up my address and all of that stuff and I checked on the email I sent them. It was done correctly. So I just want to make sure I didn't send anything wrong, because I'd done that one time when I was moving. I sent the wrong address because I screwed up the numbers on my new apartment. That was all me, but this time it was not me. And they just completely screwed it up like super bad. And they never, when I contacted them about all that stuff, they just never emailed me back. So for all intents and purposes, that those free games that they were sending me could have gotten lost in the shuffle. And basically my possible coverage of those games didn't matter. That's basically kind of what that told me. When someone sends you an email, respond back. Like, unless they're saying something, unless the creator is saying like, hey, you are an a-hole, or not giving you some type of constructive feedback, like, hey, at least say something to them. Like they are at least worth an email. Even if it's just one, that's cool. You need to be communicative with these creators. And you know, especially after you've said that we're going to send you games. Like, that's just ridiculous to me that you're not going to even send out a tracking information or try to follow up about why the package has been lost for 2 weeks. You know, like, that's stupid. Don't do that. And kind of with both of these scenarios, you know, it belittles the content creator to the point where they don't want to make stuff. I will say that the second time it didn't belittle me to have to stop making content altogether. But it definitely is making me not want to cover those games. Like, I was going to cover one of them specifically on my new show, Brought to the Table. I'm not covering on that show anymore, just straight up. So just because, like, game is good. I played it. It's actually really fun, but I'm not covering it right away. I'll talk about it later when I want to.
Sure.
I'm not doing it. Sorry. Like,
Nope.
if you guys are going to treat me like a jerk, I'm just not going to give you the time of day. And guess what? I've already talked with people behind the scenes about this. Other content creators know about this too. So if you want to keep sending your stuff to the big creators, that's fine. But the people that actually want to go talk about your games, like we've been talking about in the show, Passion, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that. So
No,
that's been my experience. Which just sucks because I want to have more positive experiences. But it just, you know, I cover very specific things, and the things I'm interested in, you know, are very specific. So, you know, I have to reach out to particular publishers to kind of get into these things. And my experiences have not been good.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
No, and it's okay though. You know, the thing is, it can only get better because honestly, like we talked about this before the show. The reason why we're doing this show is because we want to help improve this. Whether it's something we did, whether it's something the publishers did, we want to improve that relationship because we're getting to the point that we're getting large enough as like a tabletop industry where you got to start treating everyone like human beings. You got to show some empathy.
Yep. I totally agree. I had a very similar experience. Well, you know, without saying names, of course, I got the chance to basically review certain games, and they were supposed to send me 2 games. I got sent the one that I was probably less excited about, but I was still, you know, going to cover it and everything. But then I had a question about the rulebook of the game, because I actually didn't understand how the game worked. The rulebook was written really weird, and that kind of made me like concerned a little bit. But I was like, oh, the super easy fix. I'll just go ahead and email them. I emailed them and never got a response. So same like you were saying, you know, publishers, please email back. It feels so sad. You know, you're just trying to do what you can over here, and when you don't even hear back, it's like, did you guys even care? And then you see all of these, you know, videos going out for the same game already. It's like, oh, now there's just no point. I'm just going to be in that wave of content creation that never gets seen. It was really disappointing. On the other hand, though, I did have a good experience. Which I don't know, with good experiences, can we just like say who the company was?
Yeah, no, I mean, I called it out.
Yeah,
like, hey, okay, publishers, when you do good things on this podcast we're talking about right now, we're gonna say that you did something good, like straight up, like that. Like, I have to give huge shout outs to the publisher. Leader Games is great. They're super vocal about everything that they do. You know, at least from my experience watching them and following their stuff, you know, I actually got to talk with Patrick at one point with some things. So like, super nice people. Shout outs to them. Like, they do great stuff.
Leader Games is awesome. Yeah. I approve. I approve of them.
All right. Glad we're on the same page.
Yes. Yeah, so my problematic publisher was actually Leader Games. No, just kidding.
No.
So that the good publisher, the publisher that I had a really great experience with was Direwolf Entertainment, I believe they're called. I don't know if they're digital or just Direwolf, but they're the ones who
Direwolf. Yeah,
they're just Direwolf. Yeah, they did Root Digital. They did Clank, Clank Legacy, Clank in Space, all Clank. And they have just recently started the Dune Imperium board game, which is a worker placement deck building game. I was super interested in, 1, because I love Dune, 2, because I love worker placement, 3, because deck building is awesome. I was really feeling this game. I had been following the development of it. And I just emailed them and was just like, hey, is there any chance that I could get a copy of this game and cover it for my channel? And I actually didn't hear back from them for a little bit. But then I woke up and they were just like, "Hey, what's your address? What's your name? We're going to send you a game." And I was like, "Wow." And they even gave a reason that why it had taken so long for them to respond to me. And I was just like super, super amazed by the professionalism. I got a tracking number. The package got here super fast. It was like 3 days after they had contacted me. I was impressed. I was like, this is amazing. And I really love their game, so that also helps. I'm like gaining this passion for this game as I've played it more and more, and I just am like, I'm obviously working on content for it, but man, it's really something. But the company made that experience 10 times better. You can have a bad game if you're a great publisher. Being really nice and being great to that content creator, I think that you will make your game shine in a better light.
No, I agree. I think the thing you said right there about like when they like you emailed them and they didn't get back right away, but when they emailed you, they specifically said why they didn't get back to you right away.
Yep.
Like that's good. Like
Yeah.
you need to say those things because as creators, and this even goes into some weird like learning psychology crap that I don't want to turn this into an educational podcast, but let me put on my teacher hat. All right. All right. Professor Luke Jones here. Whenever you want to like, or I also learned this when I was interning out in Seattle, get on tirade. Whenever you do something, like if you don't have the answer for it, you need to follow up and explain like why it can't be done and what you're going to do to solve it. And like, that's literally what they did right there. So shout out to them. Like that's super important. What they did there, you know, like actually following up like that. I think that is super important. And more publishers need to do that. Straight up. Like I'm glad. That's a really good experience. I'm really happy for you. That's really cool.
It was rad. I was super pleased.
Because
I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, because like the thing you said too, like it's becoming one of your favorite games, and like I think, you know, when a publisher is able to give you a really good experience and then you get a really good game off of it, guess what? It shows that they care about games. They care about giving you that type of experience, not just when like, you know, delivering the game to you, but also a good game, that vice versa, like two-way street thing. So when they do that, when publishers do that, it makes everything just so much better. Like the experience that you're having with the game is going to be better. And, you know, that means, guess what? You're getting more positive reception from the game. I don't know. You know, maybe.
Yeah. In my case, it could actually mean that you're going to get more videos on the game. Seeing as my channel does focus on the strategy, I'm being more picky about what games I want to do for an actual strategy series. But if I really like your game, and you guys are rad, I might even do like, you know, a video on every faction in the game because that's something that I just like to do. It's something that I get enjoyment out of, but I'm not going to do it for a publisher that's rude.
Well, exactly.
But man, Dune Imperium's looking really spicy right now, and I can see all of the strategy potential. I'm really thinking about covering each of the houses.
Spoiler alert, Sam's going to be covering Dune on his channel. You can check back on his channel in 2 weeks. You will see some new content and just spoiling everything. I don't even know if that's when it's coming out.
It's definitely coming out soon.
Nice. I definitely have to get on that Dune train too. You and Sarah specifically have told me some good things about that game, and I'm like, I'm not a Dune fan, but worker placement and deck building is kind of up my alley, so I'll need to try it out at some point.
Without the theme in mind, it is a really good game mechanically, and
yes.
I really like games that make deck building matter. There's some deck builders where, you know, you'll do the deck building, you'll see an ability, but it doesn't actually feel like you bought that card, put it in your deck, and that made an impact in your strategy. With Dune Imperium, you don't get to see your cards very much. When they pop up, it is like incredibly crucial because every card is very powerful too. So it seems like when you buy a card, like it impacts that turn greatly, like depending on what you do with it. And I've made like some game-changing mistakes and some game-changing breakthroughs based on a single card that I've bought. Like that's how tight it is, but it feels really good. It's not a problem. It's crunchy. I mean, you've got to be like, ooh, I want to buy this card. And wow, that really paid off. Or, ooh, that did not pay off. My bad.
Yeah, I know I've been reading reviews and like, I love deck builders. And I know one of the things I've been very critical about with recent deck builders is the fact that like, they've all kind of still followed that same thing of like, oh, you're just going to buy this card. And then that card is going to, you know, help you get more cards later down the road. There's not like there's not really a lot of decision matrix stuff. Like I have to give Marvel Legendary huge props because Marvel Legendary is a co-op deck builder game, and if you played a lot of the early expansions, it's very much, all right, well, I'm going to grab this card and it's going to add it in my deck, and then later I'm going to have better cards to go do swings. But now they're adding more strategy to everything, so actually like buying certain cards matters a lot more. So like that, and like granted, it's still not probably to the same aspect that what you're with Dude, but making those types of decisions, I think, is super important with your games. Decision matrix is like a whole topic in itself. I've discovered that with Star Wars Destiny. God, it's so good.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think definitely, you know, I know publishers and probably some content creators are gonna be listening to this. Make your experiences positive, you know, and on both fronts too. I mean, like, you know, I remember, I won't call out who did this because they were a member of our community, but I had heard when I first got my Perfectly Wretched box, there was a member of our community that was not even a content creator that tried to like reach out to Ravensburger through social media means and were like trying to say they can like cover their game for free just to get the game for free. Don't be a jerk about asking for games. Don't do that. Because they're not going to look at you nicely. And also too, that's going to make content creators look bad too. Because I know, like, you know, as villainous fans, when someone's going to be a jerk like that, like it's going to make us look bad too. So don't do that. Be nice. Be professional. You know, always say thank you. Send your thank you emails. You know, it's like when you go apply for a job, like send your thank you emails afterwards.
Thank you so much for sending the game. Or, you know, you could even just tweet it out. Be like, thank you so much for sending this game. Had a great experience with Direwolf, you know, or, you know, whatever I did. I basically posted and said, loving their game, loved the experience that I got from them, and took a picture of the game, us playing it, basically. Just that, I'm sure, matters a lot. You know, they retweeted it. You know, that kind of publicity is great for them. So even if it's just something as simple as a tweet out, I mean, sheesh.
Yeah.
That could be really helpful.
I absolutely agree with you. Like, just make sure that you know, I had this conversation with one of my friends recently about like being thankful, especially in 2020. And like, we need to be, I mean, like the publishers are still being nice enough to send these games that cost a lot of money at retail to us for free. And, you know, I had these bad experiences with these publishers, but like I did get some games out of it, you know? So like, I don't want to sit here and completely hash all over them. Cause like one of them sent me over probably $100 worth of games in a box. And, but at the same time, it's like, you know, just because you sent me those free games, if you didn't make the experience great for me when I got those games, I'm not going to sit there and do that. But at the same time, still be thankful, you know, like I still reached out, was like, hey, I got the games, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You know, like that type of ordeal. Will I hear back about it? Who knows? But still be thankful. Like, I mean, like games are not cheap, you know. Just make sure you do your due diligence and stuff like that. And even if you don't, I mean, like, I play lots of games I don't cover on the channel yet, you know, but at the same time, it's just like, make sure, like what Sam's saying is like, just tweeting out or like whatever social media platform you're on, if you just tag the publisher in it with a picture, like, I think that means a lot. Like, it seriously does.
They really do. Yeah, totally. Now here's an interesting spin on this, actually. I don't know.
Okay. Spin me.
Here's a little spin. As smaller content creators, is it a detriment that we are picky about how we are treated by publishers? And do you think that the big content creators are not picky and that is why they are like bigger faster, because they're just accepting everything? They just don't care. They just want to grow. They're just doing all these videos. They're not passionate about this game. They're releasing this review video. They don't care. They don't care about this. They don't care about that. And I'm not saying that being picky is bad, but I would ask same, like, do you think that it has slowed down our progress and growth? Because I know personally it probably has slowed down my progress and growth, because there has been 3, probably 4 maybe games that I've just not covered that probably could have brought in people to the channel, but I just didn't think that they were right for my channel. If I was somebody like, I'm not going to name names, if I was somebody else, I would just take that game, review it, there you go. You know, have no feeling, have no emotion, just review the game, give an
Right.
overview, release that video. I'm not that person, but do you think that's holding us back? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a double-edged sword. Because I'm gonna bring up the Dice Tower gang because I actually still watch the Dice Tower to this day. I still watch other
I
videos.
do too.
Tom
I
Vassell.
like when Tom does videos.
Yeah, no, yeah, like Tom specifically, I have to give Tom a lot of credit. The Dice Tower does look at everything. But the thing is, Tom, when he reviews games, looks at them in a way to help bring more people into the hobby and be more welcoming to the hobby. And
Yeah.
I think that's really important from that aspect because I watch his reviews of stuff like, Villainous, Minecraft Builders and Biomes,
Yeah.
a lot of the Rising games, which, when we were originally talking about the family game stuff, like, yeah, for us as like super hardcore tabletop gamers, like, yeah, that kind of makes us feel, like what we do is like childish to some people.
Sure.
But the thing is that Tom's whole goal is that he wants to tell people like, hey, I know you have friends that want to get into the hobby, but you don't know what the right game is. This game right here has still lots of depth and will get people into the hobby. The Minecraft Builders and Biomes review is great because like Tom's like, I know that my kids play Minecraft. That's it. I know it's about with blocks. But he played the game and he's like, wow, this game has lots of depth. There is lots of things you can do with this game. And people that are outside of the table, that a top industry or like sphere that want to get into video games or not video games, tabletop games. Guess what? Minecraft, tabletop, smash them together. Guess what? We just invited someone to a whole new sphere. And I think that's great. I don't want to give them any crap at all for what they do because I know Tom's vision with that has always been, let's try to make this, get more people to play games.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, let's cover the game, which honestly, part of that is going to be that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit there and like, oh, that's not the underlying or whatever. But that's like the thing is, that's the idea. There are definitely been things I've seen from other folks that are semi big that they just covering the games because they got a game and they're talking about it. And I do think that is, in that instance, it is because, a publisher's only going to have so many review copies already in the tank before they go send out all their stuff to the distributors before they put it at the big retail places. There's only going to be so much of that.
Yep.
And they have to pick and choose. And people like you and me that are smaller, that would be really passionate about talking about some of these games, they're not going to reach.
Yep.
And like there are games that definitely I would love to cover. But no, they're going to give it to those people that they're, and like the thing is, they're going to play it once or twice, so they know what it's about, and put it away.
Yep.
And that sucks. And I do think it does hurt. How you solve that, I still don't know. Because I also don't want to necessarily crap all over these content creators because they make videos. Like our craft, it's like what you talked about at the beginning of the show, where like what we do is work. Like it's not just like, like slap a video together and then throw it up on YouTube and bada bing, bada boom. That stuff takes time. Like I know you edit a lot more of your videos than I do, but like even from my standpoint, like doing these podcasts and like editing the shows and actually being able to talk for a long duration of time, like that's a skill. That is labor, and like, but we're having fun doing it. But like, that's how they have to view this stuff. And I don't know, like it's a tough thing because those folks that still aren't passionate about the games are still putting videos together that are, for the most part, well edited.
Yeah.
And
that's true. That's true.
So
it's
it's tough. And granted, people that are just, shoving videos out just for shoving video out's sake, regardless, yeah, that's bad. But I do think there's a lot of science that goes into this that I'm not 100% sure how to solve. And I think really the best thing that we can do is just, as I always say, don't try to bring people down, try to bring people up. And when you think you can give some nice constructive feedback to someone, try to do so. And don't just say, hey, you suck. Because that's not going to work. But yeah, no, I think it's weird. It's definitely weird.
Yep. I'm glad I asked that question because it is kind of weird. I agree with that it's weird. It's a tough place to be in. And I think that, I don't know, I guess we'll see if it pays off eventually. I would say that, alternatively, we have really, committed communities that we've built, even being so small, we have, people that are committed to us, to our channel.
Right.
And you don't see people with the same amount of subscribers as we do getting the views that we have. And there's a reason. Passion. I'm gonna say it again. It's the word of the podcast.
And we're the podcast. That's supposed to be the title of the show.
Passion.
Passion.
But like, because we have done this, because we have built it up this way, we are going to probably, grow well. And if we keep doing this, by the time that we have, 10,000 subscribers, I think we're going to be really, really impressed with how much views we're getting as opposed to other people with 10,000 subscribers right now.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point you bring up too with the numbers, because, one of the things I realized early, since I started the channel in January, like for the getting monetized on YouTube, you have to reach 1,000 subscribers and I believe 4,000 hours worth of watch time total.
Yes.
And without going too much into detail, I broke 4,000 hours within mid-February. And if you saw my number, what it is right now, a lot of you would pee yourself. But the thing is, like, to me, is like, yeah, it sucks. I'm about to break 900 subscribers. But the thing is, I know for a fact those 900 subscribers watch my videos from beginning to end. And like that means a lot to me, because that means the entirety of the experience that I'm giving someone is enjoyable.
Totally.
I think that matters the most to me personally. And I think it sucks because, like I said, like when you get told that you don't have 1,000 subscribers, we don't want to work with you. It's like, wow, like that sucks. But then like I see, my communities engage with me, like the fact that the community is literally helped bring out the dream of running a tabletop gaming tournament scene for a game is pretty cool. And it's thanks to you folks that are allowing that dream to happen. I think it's great. And I think that's what matters, is that as long as you're still, and we're going to go back to the word, as long as you're still passionate about something, people are going to care. But then I think it goes back to what you said at the very beginning of the show, where like you're looking for work. It's like, how do you take that passion and turn it into something where that's financially feasible to spend that type of time and coverage on this stuff? Because like you said, like making a video is not easy. Like if you want to make something good, it doesn't just happen in 5 minutes. Nope. So there's a lot that goes into this conversation.
There is. Yep. There's a lot of time, sweat, blood, tears that goes into making videos.
Absolutely.
And, you support who you support, but publishers, I'm not a publisher, so at the end of the day, we can just talk about them. I would love to at some point hear publishers talk to, I don't know. I would like to hear a publisher's point of view.
And I will say this too. For those of you publishers that are actually listening to this podcast, send me a DM on Twitter. I would love to talk to you. We can talk. I would love to sit down and talk with you folks about some of these conversations. I know I'm not the biggest creator on the planet, but it's one of my dreams to be able to talk with some of you about these types of things and not just say like, hey, your game's great. Can I have more of your games? That I've already purchased way too many of. No, I would love to just sit down and talk with you folks about all this, because I think, there's a lot more that I know that goes into this. Like we said, there's like the whole production side, and like, also like, you have a social media manager, do you have a marketing manager, do you have someone that's running your warehouse? I know there's a lot of stuff that goes into even everything that we've talked about today. I would just love to talk with you folks. So if you would love to be on the show and just talk to me and give me an honest answer, even if it hurts my soul, please, I would love to, because that's going to help bring a better perspective to all of us that are especially smaller content creators on the show. But
I agree there.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I think unless there's anything else you would like to bring up before we end, I think that's really about it.
No, I think that was a good conversation.
That was a really good conversation. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed that a lot.
I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, and I'm finally glad that we're doing this. I think this is going to be really good. So, let us know your feedback. Let me know on YouTube. Let me know on Twitter. the feedback, no matter where you listen to it. I would love to know if we said something completely heinous, or if you've had similar experiences, and like what else you think publishers or us as content creators can do better. Now, speaking of being better, I want to be better to make sure that I let Sam plug his stuff, just in case you've never heard of Lord of the Board anytime in your life, for the sake of you following me for all this time. Sam, where can people find you? How can they support you? What can they do?
Yeah, so well, if you don't know who I am, my name's Sam Smith. No, I'm just kidding. You can follow me on YouTube mostly. That's my biggest platform. At Lord of the Board, you will find me. And also I am on Twitch, Lord_of_the_board. Definitely follow me there too. I just kind of Twitch stream some digital games now. And yeah, that would be awesome. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram of the same name, so you can find me on any of those platforms as well. Yeah, come join the community. We love Luke where we're at. So, I mean, if you like his stuff, we will likely like our stuff, and we have a cool community over here too. So
exactly. Please go support Sam. I need to now go follow him on Instagram. So that is one thing I did not know you had. So I need to go do that.
My weakest one, but I try.
No, hey, to me, like, one thing I do want to end the show on that I think is super important, and this is like coming from creator to creator standpoint, is, I talked about, like, I've been watching the Dice Tower since 2010. I've been watching Rodney Smith since 2012, 2013-ish. I've been following these folks for a long time. And anyone who makes stuff that I actually enjoy watching, I want to support, including my creator friends. Like Sam, like I said at the beginning of the show, Sam made some of the very first Disney villainous videos that blew up on YouTube. And it slightly inspired this entire villainous community content creation thing. I don't know. I don't think you realize how much you did do that. Because I was like, if someone else can do it, I can do it too. And that's, I think, is super important. So like, and I watch Sam's videos because a lot of the games that we share a lot of similar interesting games. So I like to see what Sam's coverage is on them. And I think that's super important to support each other. So like if you watch content, go watch your fellow content creators, especially us smaller folks' content, and support it. Cause I do think that's super important that we, lend a hand where we can. I think that's really important. And I really appreciate you shouting my stuff out too. Cause I know when I was on your stream the other day that everyone was enjoying the conversation about Monopoly. So
of all things, Monopoly. Oh boy.
That was a good conversation.
Can't wait to hear that episode.
I know. And it's funny because this episode's not going to go up for another 2 weeks, the day that we're recording this, but tomorrow is the day that the Brought to the Table episode on Monopoly debuts. So I'm going to make a lot of people very upset at me.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, so it'll be good. But Sam, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your honest thoughts and experiences on this. It really does help. So I'm just not talking about my own.
No, I appreciate it, and thank you so much for having me on.
It's been absolutely. We'll definitely have you on again so we can talk about something more fun. But because I know there's definitely some stuff we can talk about in terms of tabletop gaming that I think will actually be very interesting. So
definitely.
But until then, everybody, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the show. So thank you all for tuning in. As always, until next time, we'll see you folks on the next episode and what ideas that we will bring to the table.